Cloak and Dagger is losing you 50% of your games while being the most popular hero in the game. In this video, we'll dive deep into what makes Cloak and Dagger a hero with low carry potential and key things you should follow if you'd like to start ranking up on your next gaming session. I was browsing to see who's the most played hero. It came up to be Cloak and Dagger. She has over 20% pick rate. Most characters don't even come close to that. So I was looking through the browser to see who is the #1 on that hero. And so I found this Grandmaster player named Corey G. And this is not a personal attack on Corey G whatsoever. I don't even know who the guy is. Just said that he's the #1 on the tracker. But Cloak and Dagger as a concept and a hero is something that you want to avoid at all costs if you're even remotely serious about improving at the game. And just observing the profile exactly tells you why. So the #1 Cloak and Dagger, as we can see here, has almost exactly on the dot 50% win rate. And that's the embodiment of that character. This player played 106 hours this season, 277 wins, and about the same losses. One loss less, 49.9 win rate. And that's the #1 player. And he's also in Grandmaster. Actually, he's a Grandmaster 2 player, not a Grandmaster 3, just hit his peak, with less than 50% win rate. Now, I would like to observe the gameplay and I want to demonstrate exactly why that character is going to be detrimental to your improvement and what makes this a very popular hero in the first place. So I just picked an average game where the score was okay, they won the game, but I want to dive deep into the character and more importantly why people gravitate towards the character and why gravitating towards a character like this is going to be detrimental if you'd like to rank up. So let's start. So we have observed approximately 15 seconds, and what did you see? You basically saw a Cloak and Dagger sitting at the back, just healing a bunch. There was no damage, no offensive utility, none of that stuff. Now some of you might say, yeah, he could have used his wall and that would have been offensive utility. You would be correct, but it's only one offensive utility. That doesn't grant that much of an advantage. The essence of the character is essentially sitting at the back, healing and shifting all responsibility to your team to carry the game, while you yourself think, I am doing my job. However, your job, I'm sorry to say, it's fairly easy. And some of you might be like, yeah, but you need to have good positioning on Cloak and Dagger to not die. Yes, that's a must on any character. I'm not here to critique the gameplay, I'm here to critique how the character is meant to be played. I'm not here to critique his death, why it happened, but all he did was sit at the back, throw heals, use his healing utility. Now, he could have used his offensive utility, but even if he uses his wall, it doesn't grant that big of an advantage, considering they also have a Cloak and Dagger that probably also uses her wall. And to be honest, how much better can you really use your wall compared to the enemy Cloak and Dagger wall? It's a fairly long cooldown that happens once every 12 seconds, 13 seconds, however many. Very difficult to miss, and that's your best shot at actually killing someone. And even if you try to follow up on that damage yourself, the likelihood of a kill is not very high, as your damage output, even with the wall, and the damage boost applied with the wall is fairly low. Sit the back heal, sit the back heal, throw the healing, sit the back heal, throw the healing, sit the back heal, throw the healing. Right, so here here he uses the cloak form and he avoids the BP with his ability. That takes skill, you're right, but literally any other character in the game has that skill. You're getting jumped on by Invisible Woman, you have to push, you have to jump. With a Bucky, you use your shift to uppercut and move out of the way. With Magneto, you hold the shield, you press a bubble. With Doctor Strange, you fly away, use a shield, you get the point. Every character has abilities to disengage or mitigate damage or to protect themselves somehow. So it's not an exclusive skill to Cloak and Dagger. So again, just sit the back and heal, throw some utility. And again, they use ulti, he uses ulti. But let's talk about Cloak and Dagger ulti. You use your ulti, what does it do? Not let anyone die in your team, including yourself, right? So when you pop your ulti again, it's like, my team don't die and do something. So it's a shift of responsibility. Because when you lose the game on Cloak and Dagger, you could tell yourself pretty simply, I healed, I used my healing abilities. I use my wall every like 12 seconds. Use my cloak ability to not die as many times as possible. And then I use my ultimate so they don't die, but we still lost the fight. Yes, but essentially you don't have anything offensive that you can single-handedly shift the team fight in your favor to the point that you can carry the game. Of course, you can do better than other Cloaks and Dagger, but the skill difference is never going to be big on the character itself, rather than the fundamental play. So like a Grandmaster Cloak and Dagger will die significantly less than a Bronze Cloak and Dagger because of his understanding of positioning, but it has nothing to do with a character. It has everything to do with his ability to play the game as a player, no matter what character he plays. So again, this is not a diss to Corey G. They dove him, they used his abilities, his ulti kind of got cancelled by the map. But the point is, what could really Corey G do here? I'm the owner of RankUpAcademy.gg, that what we do for a living is help players just like you rank up. We've done this for thousands of people. So if you'd like to join, check the description below. I might save you a lot of time. The only way to properly carry in hero shooters like Marvel Rivals is to kill the enemy team. Now, some characters have more kill potential than others, which makes them higher at the list of carry potential. Some characters can do enough damage that distracts the enemy team, force their abilities, and could be followed by their team. But that always begs the question, what if my team is bad? So the more damage you have, the more kill potential you have, which means the more carry potential you have. And I think that subconsciously everyone is aware of that. Because the main complaint of supports are, I am healing, I'm using my cooldowns, I'm farming my ultis, but we still lose. My DPS sucks, my tank sucks, right? I could be wrong about this, but I think that the majority of support, and specifically Cloak and Dagger players, know that the carry potential of their character is so low. So why do they choose to play this hero? I think the Cloak and Dagger players understand that they have a very low skill floor, very low skill ceiling, and their responsibility is shifted away from there to their team. They say, I'm going to play a character that I cannot blame myself for losing. And that is a mindset you don't want to have if you're remotely serious about ranking up. You want to shift most of the responsibility on yourself because that is the only way to improve. I want to play a hero that can carry a match, and if I'm unable to carry that match, that is my fault. Therefore, the logical question is, what could have I done to actually carry this game? What could have I done to play better? And now like, there's always going to be that guy who says, yeah, but like with Cloak and Dagger, you can have massive carry potential if you like use your walls correctly and you start doing damage. But that's like me saying, you can pick Bucky and if you use your hooks and hit him, you can carry. Yeah, that's for every character. If you pick a hero and use the abilities and the abilities hit correctly, yeah, guess what? You're more likely to win. It's not exclusive to Cloak and Dagger. And I would say the likelihood of you getting a kill with a Bucky hook is significantly higher than you placing a good wall once every 12 seconds on Cloak and Dagger. That's just the reality of things. It's very interesting how the most picked hero is the hero with the least carry potential in the game. That tells you a lot about the mind of the average competitive player. It tells you that they don't want to take responsibility of losses, but that comes in the expense of not taking responsibility for wins in the future. They're trading the anxiety that they might feel by getting flamed by their team or feeling like they could have done better but failed, at the expense of potentially asking themselves what they could have done better, improving, and then their rank increasing over time. Cloak and Dagger is the embodiment of 50-50% win rate. Your team is good, you win. Your team is bad, you lose. And there's nothing you can do to shift it. Truthfully, it might be somewhat of an exaggeration, because you can play better than the enemy support, but it will never be by an extent that you can consistently game after game carry. Usually, Cloak and Dagger players, they rank up with a duo. They rank up with a stack. They play with equally as competent players that the Cloak and Dagger players know will follow up on the healing and use the ultis and use the abilities to carry them. And I know that I said something very dangerous. Cloak and Dagger players are carried, which has to be the case for the most part, because their character as and of itself doesn't have the carry. They need to provide enough healing and enough defensive utility for others to capitalize on, which by definition is carried. And I know for me, as a content creator, to say that on the most played hero is a little bit risky, but I have to be honest. And I think that even if just a few players will shift their mind and try to take more responsibility, they will bear the fruits of actually feeling they're improving and carrying games. And there's nothing better than doing something competitive and noticing the improvement through ranking up through the tiers. I'm going to play this at the 1.5 speed so you can see, which essentially, this is the character. Hit the back and heal. No matter to what point we go, it's always sit at the back, heal, make sure people don't die. Use ultis, guess what? So people don't die. Now yeah, I would say this was a fairly good play to try to get the kill. The problem is it will never work inconsistently because the damage output is way too low. By the time the Cloak and Dagger died, the Cloak and Dagger could have used a Cloak to get out, somebody could have healed her, they could have used an ulti. So many things could have happened to avoid this death. It's a very slow damage. And that 5% difference is what could help you rank up on Cloak and Dagger compared to other Cloak and Daggers, but again, it's not going to be consistent. I think you understand the point. Sit back, heal, don't die. So essentially, if there's nothing special about the character of Cloak and Dagger, like most of the feedback's like, yeah, but like if you position and you don't die, and if you use your cooldowns and you lead up, it helps lead up to a kill. Yeah, but that's the job of every character. It's nothing special about Cloak and Dagger. People almost like to gaslight themselves like they're the main character on Cloak and Dagger as if they do something different from any other hero. And it's not like a diss for Cloak and Dagger players. I'm just saying that if you just picked any other hero, you playing correctly would have yielded more results. But that will come at the expense of you knowing you could have done something better. And if you lose, it's because you did not do that something that could have yielded better results. Which might hurt your ego in the short term, but if you go through the hurdles of asking yourself, what is that thing that I could have done to win the game? And that will lead to you doing the said thing in the next game, and you win the next game, and then you're like, damn, I just did a thing, and I won the game because I've made the decision. And that doesn't mean that you will win 100% of the time of you playing really good. You won. Sometimes the team is going to throw for you, but it's not as common as you think. Because sometimes you will play very, very bad, and you will still win the game because your teammates played very, very well. So these are outliers. You losing when you played really, really well, to you winning when you played really, really bad, they almost happen equally statistically. Because you playing really, really well and losing, and you playing really, really bad and winning, statistically they happen as often, but they're still outliers. They don't happen very often. Your rank is determined by the average game. And your average has to be good enough for you to be able to beat the enemy team fairly consistently. You might play really, really well and lose, and you might play really, really bad and win, but these don't affect your rank on the long term. So I'd like to switch up here and pick a character that has high carry potential, and you will see how different that looks like from a Cloak and Dagger, even from the lens of a Cloak and Dagger player that feels like the things that he does will affect the game. So I'm talking about like positioning and cooldown usage. So like the Cloak and Dagger will say, yeah, but if you use your ult correctly, you're more likely to win a game. Yeah, then I'm going to show you like on a different hero, when they use their abilities correctly, you will see how much more noticeable that they actually get a kill that contributes to the win of the game, that contributes to the fact that they are the ones that carry the game. And they're the ones that are responsible for winning the game. So here I just found a random player on the leaderboard on Psylocke, and I'm just going to show you the difference. And I'm going to show you through the same lens of if you use your abilities correctly, and if you do this, and if you do that you might think will help you win Cloak and Dagger, how much of a difference that makes on characters like Psylocke, for example, which I consider to be a very, very high skill floor, high skill ceiling, which has a lot of damage, has a lot of kills, which means she has a lot of carry potential. And if she has a lot of carry potential, it means that most of your wins are because of you, most of your losses are because of you. And most people are just not ready to be the reason as to why they lose, because they like to shift responsibility away from them to other people. If you use your cooldown correctly, like your dash to get to the off angle and then you use your shurikens, all of a sudden you get a kill. On Cloak and Dagger, you wouldn't be able to do it with a wall that has once every 15 seconds. That's your only offensive utility. Go and play 125, so it'll be faster. Here you would have died on Cloak and Dagger and said, yeah, he died because he made a positioning mistake. If his position was better, like he could have won the game or he could have won the fight. Yeah, but that's the same thing on Psylocke. He made a positional error and he died. And if he would have played better positioning, he would have lived. It's not exclusive to Cloak and Dagger, how it's not exclusive to Psylocke. The same mistakes get you killed. And the same good plays, like using your utility correctly, positioning correctly, just like how using your cooldowns correctly and positioning correctly are more likely for you to win the fight. Except that on Psylocke, he's just significantly more likely to win the fight than compared to something like Cloak and Dagger. So here you saw the Psylocke engage, and then she was low, disengage. Like how you would say that when Cloak and Dagger is in danger, use her cloak and get out and not die. So yeah, it's the same skill set, just on a different hero. So again, I say this is not exclusive to Cloak and Dagger, it's exclusive to any hero. When you're in danger, use your cooldowns to get out. So here they almost managed to cap the first point. They got held on the first point, which is not looking good for the defense. But somebody like him, the Psylocke player, could have said, if I played better, if I made better decisions, if I used my utility or cooldowns or position better, my target priority would have been better, the likelihood of me going past the first point increases tremendously. Let's just watch the defense. So here, as you can see, Tap played that fight really well. He forced the Luna ulti, and then after the Luna ulti was over, he used this combo and then his ulti to basically get kills on 2 supports. And that is why they probably win this team fight. They do, and that is something that could have not been done on something like Cloak and Dagger because there's not enough damage, there's not enough offensive utility like the shurikens. And that is pretty much my point about Cloak and Dagger. It's the most played hero because it's the hero that you can shift your responsibility of losing to other people, and because of that, you will never improve fundamentally as a player. Because you will never challenge yourself enough to work on these fundamental skills that will actually help you get better, like, off-angling, like target priority, like utilizing your cooldowns to protect yourself, which you do on Cloak and Dagger, but there's also the mix of utilizing your cooldowns to get kills, which you don't really have that much on Cloak and Dagger besides your wall. But then you can say, I don't enjoy duelists, that's what duelists are for, to get kills, I like support. Yeah, but then you have other supports that can do much more and have much more carry potential. Let me show you. Mantis. There's a lot of responsibility for you to flank and do damage and get kills because the character allows you to. It doesn't have a lot of healing, but that's something that generally you don't want to have the burden of responsibility to constantly do, because when you just heal other people, what you're essentially saying, I will keep you alive, you will get the kills for me, because I can't do it. And if you can't do it, you don't matter that much for the outcome, because there could be another player that could just sit at the back and heal. If you're a Grandmaster player, most players know how to sit at the back and heal and not die. You could pick Mantis, you could pick Jeff, you could even pick Invisible Woman. Yes, Invisible Woman, you sit at the back and heal. However, you have a cooldown that does damage and slow, and you have a pull that pulls people into your team that makes it significantly easier for your team to actually kill them. You can't kill them yourself necessarily consistently at the very least, but you can make them make a positioning error, rather capitalize on their positioning error, which you wouldn't be able to do in Cloak and Dagger. With Jeff, you can flank, you can keep yourself alive, you can keep your teammates alive, but more importantly, you can do a lot of damage, you can get a lot of kills. But Jeff is hard, and Jeff has extra responsibility besides healing, and he needs to do damage, and he has to get kills, and he has to make sure he doesn't die, and he has to make sure he's utilizing his ulti more correctly, because you can die if you miss your ulti, which you can't do in Cloak and Dagger. So what I'm saying, guys, that if you are serious about ranking up, avoid playing Cloak and Dagger. Pick a character that you can really point the finger at yourself when you lose and say, damn, if I just played better, we could have won. Which is not something that most of the time will happen in Cloak and Dagger. If you played better, could have you won? Potentially. And if you played a lot better in Cloak and Dagger that game, it still probably means that you don't necessarily win the game. But on other characters, it does, as demonstrated in my Bronze to GM videos, like on Jeff, on Mantis, where I have 100% win rate, on Thor. So make sure to pick characters that have a lot of responsibility because they can get a lot of kills and do a lot of damage, rather than playing at the back and just healing, because that teaches you nothing about the game. But it keeps your ego intact. So if you like what I'm talking about in this video and would actually like to pick up a hero so you can start carrying more games, I have this Jeff guide right here, went from bronze to gem, and I tell you exactly in the most simple way possible how to do it. Click the video right here.